The snow came down in slow, heavy silence, as if the world itself had grown tired of noise. Emma Matthews stepped out of the hospital's staff entrance, with her shoulders slumped and her scrubs clinging to her skin, still damp with the sweat of too many emergencies and not enough happy endings. 12 hours, 3 cardiac arrests, 1 life saved. The weight of the other 2 stayed with her, the quiet kind of grief only nurses knew how to carry. Her breath clouded in the bitter December air. She pulled her thin coat tighter around herself, knowing it wouldn't help much. The hospital paycheck was never enough for both groceries and heat, and she had chosen groceries this month. Her apartment would be freezing again, the way it always was in winter. She walked with her head low, boots crunching through the fresh snow, a small figure swallowed by the quiet white night. There was no one waiting for her. There hadn't been in years. Loneliness had become routine, like an old sweater worn thin but clung to out of familiarity. She told herself she preferred it. It was easier that way. No one to disappoint. No one to leave. She was halfway across the dimly lit employee lot when a low purr of an engine stopped her in place. A car idled near the service entrance, a sleek black Bentley, polished despite the snowfall, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. It did not belong here. It did not belong anywhere near her world. She turned to walk past it, pretending she didn't notice. She had no energy for strange encounters, for explanations, for anything that required her to be more than the tired shell she currently was. The rear door opened before she reached it. Miss Matthews. The voice was deep, steady, practiced. A man in a black suit stepped out, holding the door open as if for royalty. Snow collected on his shoulders, but he didn't seem to feel it. Another man, bigger, scanning the shadows, stood nearby. Emma froze, clutching her worn canvas bag close. "I'm sorry," she said, voice scratchy from long hours without rest. "You must have the wrong person." "No," the driver replied simply, as if her denial was not relevant. "Emma Matthews, cardiac nurse, Evanston General." The snow muffled the world around them. Her heart began to race. "How do you know my name?" "My employer wishes to speak with you," he said. "It is regarding your father." The words hit her like a blow. Her breath caught. Her father. A ghost. A scar. A wound that never healed. He had vanished 3 years ago, leaving behind debts, apologies, and silence. Police had given up. So had she. Or she had told herself she had. "What about him?" she whispered. The driver gestured to the open door. "Please." Everything in her screamed danger. Everything in her screamed run. But hope could be crueler than fear. She stepped into the Bentley. Warmth enveloped her, the scent of leather and something darker. A man sat across from her, back straight, hands relaxed, gaze unreadable. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s. Sharp cheekbones, olive skin, dark eyes that reflected nothing back. Controlled, contained. A man who never raised his voice because he did not need to. "Miss Matthews," he greeted her. "I am Alexi Castillo." The name coiled through her memory, rumors whispered in hospital corridors when certain patients arrived under certain conditions. A name heavy with power and danger. "You said my father," Emma managed. "Is he alive?" "Yes." Her breath broke. Relief, grief, fury, all of it tangled. "He is being held," Alexi continued, "due to a debt, one you will now repay." "I don't have any money," she said, already knowing that wasn't what he wanted. A faint smile touched his mouth. Not warmth. Calculation. "No. What I require is your presence. 6 months. As my wife." The words settled like ice in her bloodstream. Marriage. Not romance. Not choice. A contract. Survival. She didn't nod. She didn't speak. But something in her chest closed quietly, like the turning of a lock. This was how it began. Not with violence, with exhaustion and snow and a door closing behind her. The penthouse rose above the city like a silent throne room of glass and winter light. Emma stepped inside with the driver behind her, and the elevator doors slid shut, trapping her between the life she had known and the world she was being forced into. She kept her bag tight to her chest as if it could protect her. Outside, snow kept falling, but in here the air felt warmer, heavier, scented faintly of expensive cologne and something sharper like steel. When the elevator opened, she expected cold marble and silence. She did not expect beauty. The penthouse stretched out, like a museum of wealth, floor to ceiling windows, looking down on the city. Furniture sleek and perfect in shades of white and charcoal art pieces worth more than everything she owned combined. This was not a home. This was a stage. 2 women waited, beside a long marble counter. They smiled with professional warmth, the kind that never reached the eyes. "Mrs. Castillo, we have prepared everything for you." Emma flinched at the name, "I am not." Her voice cracked. "We are to use the title immediately for confidentiality and safety," they replied as if explaining weather conditions. They led her to the bedroom at the end of a long hallway. The room was larger than her entire apartment. Soft lighting, heavy curtains, a bed made of cloud-like linens that no one had ever slept in. A closet door stood open. Inside hung rows of clothes all her size, every fabric smooth, every color, chosen with intention, no tags removed. No room for choice. A note lay on the center island of the closet. The handwriting was sharp and sure. "These are appropriate for the position you will hold. A Castillo wife must be seen before she is heard." There was no signature. There did not need to be. Emma touched a silk dress with trembling fingers. The luxury felt unreal beneath her skin. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tear every piece of clothing from the hangers, but exhaustion held her still. A soft knock. She turned. Alexei stood in the doorway. No coat, no gloves, no sign that he had ever been outside in the snow. He looked at her not with cruelty, but with certainty, as if the world simply arranged itself around his decisions. "You are safe here," he said. Safety sounded like a threat in his voice. "My father, Emma," forced the words past the knot in her throat. "I want proof. I want to speak to him." Alexei stepped further inside the room. He did not touch her. He did not need to. "You will tomorrow." 10 minutes supervised. She nodded because there was nothing else she could do. He glanced around the room at the clothes, at the space she was expected to fill. "This life will be different from the one you are used to. There will be eyes on you at all times. Everything you do will reflect on my name. You will learn quickly. I chose you because you do not break, do not prove." Wrong anger sparked inside her chest. Then, small but real. She had not broken before. She would not break now. But that did not mean she would belong to him. The door closed behind him with a soft whisper. Emma stood alone in the mansion of her own captivity. The ring he had shown her earlier still glowed in her memory, a promise, a threat, a shackle. She sat on the edge of the bed. Snow fell outside in slow, silent sheets. She whispered to the empty room, 6 months, then I am free. But the city below glittered like a net of stars, and something inside her knew. The trap had already begun to close. The night of the engagement party arrived faster than Emma had been ready for. Snow still whispered against the windows of the penthouse, but inside, everything glowed with warm golden light. People she had never met moved through the rooms like predators in designer clothing, their laughter too sharp, their smiles too polished. She stood near the window in an emerald dress, chosen for her address, that felt like wearing someone else's life. Her pulse beat quietly in her throat. Steady but strained, Alex had stayed close to her all evening, guiding her through conversations with the lightest touch to her back. To anyone watching it, looked tender, romantic, devoted. But Emma felt the truth in the pressure of his hand. Not affection. Control. Remember. He had murmured before the guests arrived. They cannot suspect what we are. You love me. You are overwhelmed by how quickly your life changed. You would do anything to stay by my side. She had nodded and said nothing. She had learned. Silence was safer than honesty here. Now she moved through the room, offering practiced smiles, careful words. Most guests greeted her with admiration, curiosity, envy. But some watched her with the sharpness of hawks, measuring, weighing, deciding whether she was weakness or advantage. A woman with red lips leaned in close while pretending to compliment Emma's earrings. He does not ask women to stay. Not ever. So tell me. What did you do to him? Emma just smiled because there was no answer she could give that would not be dangerous. She looked across the room and found Alexei watching her again. Always watching. As if she were a door he had locked and kept. The only key music swelled, and conversation rose. And then the room shifted. A presence entered, quiet but unsettling. People parted without noticing they had stepped aside. A man approached her. Sharp jaw, cold blue eyes, a smile that did not warm his face. So, you are the bride, he said, voice smooth like silk, drawn over a blade. Emma held her ground. I am Emma Matthews. His gaze swept over her slow, deliberate Marco Vega. He said, old friend of your fiancé. The way he said fiancé felt like a challenge, or a warning, or both. I expected someone different. He continued. Someone who understood the game she entered. Someone who knew this world does not trade in promises. It trades in power. Emma felt the air shift behind her. Alexei had appeared silent and controlled the way. Storms gather before lightning. Marco smiled wider as if this had been exactly what he wanted. He touched Emma's hand lightly. Not a caress, but a message. Be careful, little wife. Not everyone in this world honors vows. Alexei stepped in. His arm slid around Emma's waist with a possessive weight. Beautiful evening. Marco. Don't you think Marco's eyes glittered? Yes, beautiful. Unpredictable nights often are. The conversation flowed around them after that, but Emma felt something new coil beneath. Her skin, not fear, not shock, recognition. This was not simply a marriage. It was territory. It was alliances. It was war, disguised in champagne and evening gowns. Later, when the last guest had gone, and the city outside rested under snow, Emma stood in front of the tall windows. Alexei stepped behind her, his reflection beside hers in the glass. You did well, he said. There are people here who would destroy anything they see as weakness. His hand brushed hers. Her voice stayed steady. Then they should never see me break. For the first time, his gaze changed, not cold, not calculating something darker and more dangerous, something that tangled with the quiet ember inside her that refused to die. Good, he murmured. Because now the game has truly begun. Wedding day arrived wrapped in quiet snow and a tension that coiled beneath Emma's skin like a living thing. The world outside was white and clean, but nothing inside her felt pure or untouched. She stood before a mirror in a gown tailored to her body, as if the fabric knew her shape better than she did. Soft ivory silk that flowed like water diamond light, reflecting along the neckline hair, pinned back in classic waves that did not feel like her own. Her hands trembled once, and she forced them still. Weakness was something she no longer showed, not to anyone, Not even to herself, Sophia. The assistant adjusted the veil with careful hands. "Mr. Castillo will be waiting at the end of the aisle," she whispered. Her tone gentle, but her eyes carefully unreadable. Emma wondered how many women Sophia had watched walk into their own cages, and if any of them had ever walked back out. The ceremony was held in a private estate far from the city, tall windows framed by evergreen trees and winter sky. Guests took their seats quietly. Everyone important enough to be here understood that displays of emotion were strategic, not sincere. Love was not the language spoken in rooms like these. Power was. The doors opened. Emma stepped forward. Every eye fell on her at once. But she saw only one face. Alex stood at the altar in a black suit that sharpened every line of him. He did not smile, but something shifted in his expression, not softness, but recognition. He watched her as if she were not walking, to him. But being claimed, as she reached him, he offered his hand. Her fingers rested in his, not from affection, but necessity. He lowered his head slightly, just enough for her to hear the whisper between them. "From this moment on, they watch us. Remember your role." She looked up at him and answered softly, "I have not forgotten." The vows were spoken in voices steady and clear. A performance flawless in execution. His ring slid onto her finger with slow, deliberate pressure. Her ring slid onto his in return. The officiant pronounced the marriage sealed. Applause rose, polite, restrained, controlled, then his hand lifted to her chin. He studied her for one breath, two, and kissed her. Not gently, not theatrically possessive. Claiming. The kind of kiss that said, this was never about business, this was territory. The guests saw devotion. Emma felt the lock turn in the invisible door behind her. The reception followed in a blur of music and conversation. Emma stood at Alexi's side, moving with grace through each interaction. She laughed when expected. She touched his arm when eyes watched. She played the role perfectly. But inside her thoughts were sharp, quiet, and awake. Near midnight, the final guests drifted away into black cars and falling snow. Emma walked toward the tall window overlooking the dark fields beyond the estate. She stood still, veil removed, hair loosened the gown, whispering around her legs, like Frostalex approached behind her. His presence unmistakable, even without a sound. "You did well today," he said. "The world believes us. The world sees what I want them to see." She did not turn. "And you?" She answered. "Do you believe it?" Silence settled between them, a silence heavy enough to be a confession. He stepped closer, close enough that she felt his breath at her neck, close enough that the warmth of him broke through the cold she had been carrying since the hospital. "Belief is irrelevant," he murmured. "All that matters is that you are mine, and that you stay." Emma did not look at him, not because she was afraid, but because she understood something now. The wedding was not the prison, the moment she realized she no longer wanted to run. That was, and it had already happened. The island was quiet, in a way Emma had never known. Warm, wind moving through palm leaves, soft waves brushing the shore, and sunlight that seemed to glow rather than shine. The world felt far away, unreal, distant. The honeymoon had been presented as necessary to maintain appearances. But Emma began to understand. It was something more. Alexei had taken her somewhere, without shadows, without witnesses, without the audience of powerful eyes waiting to judge the new Mrs. Castillo. It was a stage of a different kind, one where their roles were no longer scripted. She walked along the shore, barefoot dress gathered in her hand, warm sand beneath her feet. For the first time since the night outside the hospital, there were no guards within reach. No security at her back, no one listening, except the sea. She could run. The thought flickered across her mind like lightning. But where would she run to? And why did the idea feel less like escape and more like something unfinished? Alexei stood on the terrace watching her. He wore no suit, no tie, just a white shirt. Open at the collar, sleeves rolled back, revealing strong forearms and a softness she had never seen in him before. He was a man built for winter city nights and boardrooms full of power. Not this sunlit, quiet place. Yet he stood there as if he belonged, and as if she did too. He came down the steps and walked toward her. His footsteps left prints beside hers in the sand perfectly parallel. He stopped close enough for his shadow to fall across her, but not close enough to touch. "You are quiet," he said, not a question, an observation. She looked out at the sea. "I do not know what I am supposed to be here. Wife hostage, guest, prisoner actress." The words stayed inside her. She said instead, "I do not know how to breathe in a world where no one is watching." He was silent for a long moment. The ocean wind tugged at his hair. Finally he spoke. "There are things about my world that cannot be undone. You entered it for survival. I know that. But survival is not the only reason you are still here." Emma felt her pulse rise slow and warm and frightening. "You think you know why I stay?" she said, her voice steady. "Tell me then." Alexei stepped closer, his hand lifting but stopping just before touching her cheek. Not ownership, permission offered. Not taken because you did not break, he said. Most collapse or bend until they become what I need them to be. You did not. You stand. You look me in the eye. You challenge me. You do not fear me the way others do. Emma laughed once, quiet, sharp. I do fear you. You terrify me, but I will not give you the power to see it. His expression changed then, slowly, subtly, like the shift of the tide. Good, he said softly. Fear keeps you alive. Defiance keeps you human. They walked back toward the villa together, neither speaking, no hands reaching for the other. No performance, no audience. Yet Emma felt something forming between them. Slow, dangerous, and real. Something neither could name. Something that would not disappear when the 6 months ended. That night, Emma could not sleep. She lay awake, listening to the steady rhythm of the sea and the quieter rhythm of the man breathing beside her, not touching, not claiming, just existing in the same darkness. For the first time, she wondered not how to escape, but what it would mean to stay. The call came just as the island began to feel almost safe. Emma had been sitting on the balcony wrapped in a thin linen blanket, watching the horizon bleed pink into the sea. Alex was inside, speaking quietly with one of his security officers, his voice low, steady, unreadable. She did not listen. She had learned that listening too closely to his business meant understanding things she could not afford to understand. Her phone buzzed. The new phone, the secure one he had given her. Only one number could reach her through it. Her father. She answered on the first ring. Dad, she whispered. The silence that followed was thick and heavy like fog, swallowing the air. Then his voice came through. Hoarse, weak, Emma. You need to listen carefully. Do not speak. Do not let him hear you. Something inside her chest tightened. She turned away from the villa, stepping to the furthest edge of the balcony, where the ocean drowned other sounds. I am listening, she breathed. Your husband is not what he seems. Her father said he is not just dangerous, he is strategic. Every move he makes is planned decades deep. Emma, you are not here because of me. You are here because of something he wants that only you can give him. Emma's fingers gripped the balcony rail. The wind swept her hair across her cheek, but she did not feel the cold. "What does he want?" she whispered. Her father's breathing grew uneven. "Your presence makes him look untouchable. Humans stable something his enemies do not have. You are not his wife. You are his shield, his weapon. And if you stay, your life will no longer belong to you. You will no longer know where your choices end and where his begin." The line crackled. Emma's heart hammered. She knew now that someone was listening. She did not know who. "Dad, where are you?" She breathed. "Are you safe? Tell me what he has done to you." Silence settled again. Thick, suffocating. Then her father spoke one final sentence. "Emma, you must run. Do not fall in love with him. Do not trust him. He does not let go." The call died, cut sharp, not lost. Ended. Emma stood motionless as the ocean moved endlessly below her. The words did not echo. They sank like stones dropping into deep water. She walked back inside. Alexei stood at the far end of the room. He was no longer on the phone. He was watching her, as if he had heard every word without needing to hear a sound. Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Something colder. Older. "You are crying," he said. His voice was soft, but the air around him felt sharpened. "No," she said. She wiped her cheek, but her hand came away wet. He stepped toward her. Slow, deliberate steps that felt like gravity pulling. Emma held her ground, even as her pulse kicked hard in her throat. "Was it your father?" Alexei asked. She nodded once. There was no point in pretending otherwise. He lifted his hand, and for a moment the world held still. He brushed a tear from her cheek. His touch was gentle. Too gentle for a man made of edges and iron. "Emma," he said quietly, "do not let the past pull you away from what is real now." She looked up at him, into obsidian eyes that held storms locked behind stillness, and she understood the most terrifying part. He believed what he said. He believed the life they were building was real. He believed she was already his. The ocean wind whispered through the open doors. Her father's warning echoed inside her chest. Do not fall in love with him. But it was already too late. The return to Chicago shattered whatever fragile peace the island had given. The moment the jet wheels touched down, Emma felt it again. The weight of eyes, the unseen currents of danger, the way every shadow seemed to be listening. The penthouse lights glowed warm through, the winter dark when they arrived. But something was wrong. The moment they stepped through the door, Emma felt it before she understood it. An absence. A shift in the air. Like a breath being held by the entire room. Alexei stopped walking. Every muscle in his body sharpening to stillness. Dmitri, his silent shadow, moved ahead, first hand already on his weapon. The living room looked untouched. Perfect. Exactly as they left it. But the perfection was the problem. Emma realized it too. Someone had been here. A single white lily rested in a crystal vase on the coffee table. The flower was beautiful and wrong. A message, not a gift. Alex crossed the room and picked up the vase. No reaction showed on his face, but Emma felt it. A change in the air, like a storm forming. "Marco." His voice held no anger, only certainty, only inevitability. Emma's pulse kicked hard under her skin. This was not like the engagement party. This was not words behind polite smiles. This was warning claim. She reached for the back of a chair, without realizing it, trying to anchor herself. "What does it mean?" she asked. Her voice stayed steady, because she forced it. Telex turned to her slowly. "The lily is a symbol used in old European blood frameworks. It means I have touched. What is yours? I can touch it again." The room felt colder. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, though the air was warm, so he was here. Yes, Dmitri returned from the security office. Motion sensors were disabled for 12 minutes. The cameras cut for 9. They knew the system from the inside. Emma understood what that meant. Not just intrusion, betrayal. Someone close. Someone loyal. Someone already inside Alexei's world. Alex stepped toward Emma. Not to intimidate, to assess. To see. To measure how she was holding. "Are you afraid?" he asked. She thought of her father's voice on the phone. "Run. Do not love him. He will never let you go." Emma lifted her chin. "Yes, I am afraid," but she did not step back. Something flickered in his gaze. Recognition, respect. Something, somewhere deeper. Good fear sharpens the mind. Dmitri returned holding a tablet, showing footage of the hallway outside the penthouse. Marco Vega's face appeared for a fraction of a second, looking directly into the camera, as if he wanted to be seen. Emma felt the cold move through her like a slow drowning. Marco had stood just beyond the door. While she and Alexei slept on a quiet island, the door behind everything in her life had been unlocked. Wide open. Waiting. Alexei handed the tablet back. His voice was quiet now, controlled in the way mountains hold storms. He wants a reaction. He wants you afraid. He wants to show you that your life is no longer separate from mine, that what threatens me threatens you. Emma met his gaze, and he is right. Silence heavy. "Real, you can leave now," Alexei said, his voice steady, even measured. "If you choose to, I will not stop you." The words cut sharper than any threat. She felt the choice like a heartbeat, stay or run life before him, or life with him, freedom, or fire. Emma stepped forward instead of back. I stay. His breath left him slow and quiet. Not triumph. Something far more dangerous. Acceptance bond. Claim? Outside the snow kept falling. Soft, silent, inevitable. The safe house was not a house at all. It was an old brick building, by the river, hidden behind warehouses and freight lots, where no one looked twice. Inside it was quiet and dim and clean, in a way that felt intentional, not comforting. Emma sat at the wooden table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug, though she could not taste the tea. Alexei stood by the window, his body still as carved stone, watching the water move below. He had not spoken since they arrived. The silence between them felt alive. Coiled, listening. Dmitri and 2 others secured the entrances, checked, the perimeter checked again. They moved with the precision of men who lived in danger and slept beside it. Emma watched them and realized something had changed since the Lily was left in the penthouse. This was not defense anymore. This was preparation. Finally spoke. "What happens now?" Her voice did not shake. She would not give herself that permission. Alexei turned to her slowly. His eyes were darker than she remembered, like the ocean, the moment before a storm breaks. "Marco will move soon," he said. "He has pushed once to show he can reach you. The next time he will try to take something." Emma felt the truth of that, settle deep in her spine. Not fear now. Awareness. "Take me," she said. Alexei's jaw tightened. "Yes." She set the mug down carefully. "Then, we stop him before he tries." For the first time since they arrived, Alex looked directly at her. Not at his wife, not at a bargaining chip, not at a symbol. At Emma. "Say what you are thinking," he said. She stepped closer to him, the river glinting behind, him like cold silver. "You do not win by hiding. You win by controlling where the fight happens. If he wants me to be leverage, then I decide how I am used. I choose the ground." Not him. Alexei studied her with a quiet intensity that made her heart slam, once hard against her ribs. "You would use yourself as bait," he said. Again. Not disbelief. Understanding, Emma nodded. If it ends this, yes. The room shifted. Dmitri stopped what he was doing and looked over as if he had heard the unspoken decision. Alex stepped closer until his breath touched her cheek, warm and steady. Do you know what happens once you make this choice? His voice was quiet, without weapon or armor. Once you step into this world, you do not walk back out of it, unchanged. Emma held his gaze without flinching. I am already changed. Something broke in the silence between them. Not a fracture. A release. Alexei reached up and touched her face. Not possession, not dominance. A question. She answered by not pulling away. Dmitri cleared his throat, softly. We have a location, he said. Marco is consolidating men at one of his old docks near the south end. Alexei did not look away from Emma. Prepare the vehicles, he said. Dmitri nodded and left. Emma felt the weight of what was coming settle around, her shoulders like a mantle. Not chains, not captivity. Choice. Alexei's voice lowered almost a whisper. After tonight, there is no going back. Emma breathed in the quiet air between them. Then there is no back to go to. He took her hand, not to lead, but to stand beside. Outside, the city kept breathing. Snow falling again in slow, quiet sheets, as if trying to bury what was about to happen beneath white silence. But the war was already awake, and Emma was no longer running from it. She was walking straight, into it, alongside the man the world feared, not as his hostage, not as his shield, as his equal. The docks were silent when they arrived, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of something waiting. Fog rolled across the water, thick and white, swallowing shapes and distance. Emma stepped onto the concrete. Her heart beat. Steady, steady, steady. Alexei walked beside her, his presence like a shadow shaped into a man. Dmitri and the others moved ahead, searching every dark corner with quiet, precise calculation. This was not a rescue. This was not a negotiation. This was the moment the lines stopped pretending to be blurred. Emma kept her gaze forward. Her father's warning echoed in her memory. Run. Do not love him. He does not let go. But it no longer felt like a warning. It felt like a lie spoken too late. She had already chosen. The warehouse door groaned open. The inside glowed with a single hanging light, and beneath it, Marco Vega stood waiting. He smiled when he saw her, not the smile of a predator. The smile of a man who believed he had already won. So the bride arrives, he said, his voice smooth as oil across water, and willingly. I must admit I did not expect that. Emma walked forward until she stood in the full glow of the single light. No guards held her. No one pushed her. She came by her own steps. This was important. She needed Marco to see that. I am tired of running from other people's choices, she said. Her voice did not tremble. I make my own now. Marco studied her with sharp, assessing interest. And which choice have you made? Little wife Emma looked back at Alexei only briefly. Enough to draw strength. Not dependency. I stay, she said. Marco laughed low and cold. Ah, then he has done it. He has folded you into his world so completely, you no longer remember life outside of him. But Emma did remember. She remembered frozen apartments and hunger and long night shifts and waiting for someone who never came. She remembered learning to survive alone. I did not have a life before him, she said. Only endurance. He did not trap me. He made space for me. Marco's smile faded. He did not like losing. He especially did not like losing what he believed he already owned. He lifted his gun. Not toward Alex. Toward her. And that is why you will break him. Before anyone moved. Before Dmitri raised his weapon, before Alexei stepped forward, Emma spoke. "Then you misunderstand both of us." Stepped between Marco's sightline and Alex, not shielding, declaring. "You think breaking me breaks him," she said. "But I do not need saving. I do not need protection. I choose him. That is what makes me dangerous, not helpless." Marco hesitated. 1 second. A single breath. It was enough. Alex moved like a blade through dark water. No hesitation, no wasted motion. The gun hit the ground. Marco hit the floor Dmitri, and the others secured the rest quickly, efficiently, absolutely. The room breathed again. The fog outside continued to roll, as if it had never paused at all. Emma stood still, her hands steady, her pulse quiet. Alexei stepped to her. He did not touch her. He did not pull her to him. He simply stood near enough that she could feel the heat of him, and in that closeness, she understood the truth. This was no longer survival, no longer obligation, no longer something temporary. He looked at her, as if the world made sense. Only where she existed you chose. He said softly, "Yes," she answered. There was no ceremony, no confession, no applause. Only two people standing in the aftermath of what would have destroyed anyone else. And in that wreckage they had found something unbreakable. Snow returned the night they came back. Soft, quiet, steady, as if the world was trying to cover every violent truth under white silence. Emma stood in front of the tall windows of the penthouse, the city glowing below like distant fire. The war had ended with no dramatic headlines, no public reckoning, power shifts like weather, quiet to most, devastating to those who know where to look. Marco Vega had disappeared from every corridor of influence, vanished like smoke in winter air. But absence is not peace. Absence is only the space left behind when something ends. Emma did not ask what Alexei had ordered. Some things do not need to be spoken to be true. She felt him before she heard him. His presence warm behind her, steady and dark, like deep water. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence between them had changed. Heavy, not tense. Something living. Something shared. "You made your choice," he said finally, his voice low as if meant only for her. "There is no doorway back to the life before." She watched the snow falling beyond the glass. "I know." He stepped closer, not touching. Just near enough for her to feel it. "The world believes our story." Now he said, "They believe the marriage. They believe the unity. They believe the love." Emma let out a quiet breath. "But what do you believe?" He did not answer right away. Alexei was not a man who rushed truth. When he spoke, it was slow and precise. "I believed I brought you into my world to use your presence, your steadiness, your silence, your strength. I thought you would become part of my strategy, a shield, a symbol, a calculation." Emma turned to him. Then she met his eyes fully, without fear. And now his voice softened, almost unfamiliar. "Now I cannot imagine this world without you in it." The truth settled between them like gravity, not confession. Understanding before she could speak. Dmitri walked in quietly. He held a phone in his hand, his expression unreadable. "Emma, it is your father." The room tilted. Emma took the phone. Her breath held. "Dad." His voice was clearer than before. Steady, alive. "Emma, I am safe. But I must tell you something. Something I should have told you long ago." Emma closed her eyes. Her heart braced. "I was never taken," he said. "There was no ransom, no chains, no prison. I ran, I left. I chose to disappear. Because I knew the moment Alexei saw you, he would never let you go." Emma's breath wavered. He saw you long before you ever saw him. Your strength, your quiet, your fire. He wanted you long before there was ever talk of debt. I let the lie stand because I believed he could protect you better than I ever did. The call ended. Not abruptly, just final. Emma stood still. The truth unfolding inside her, slow as dawn, breaking over dark water. She turned to Alexei. He looked back at her. No denial. No apology. No pride. You knew, she whispered. Her voice, barely breath. You chose me before any of this began. Yes, he said. She should have felt betrayed. She should have felt trapped. She should have felt the walls close. But instead she felt something entirely different. Something terrifying and tender. She stepped toward him. Not forced. Not guided, chosen. When she spoke, her voice was steady and sure. Then it was never about survival. Not really. Not mine. Not yours. His breath caught just once. The only sign that her words struck deep no. He said, "It was always about us." There were no vows spoken, no dramatic promises, no redefined agreements. He simply reached for her, and this time, she reached back. The snow outside kept falling, soft, quiet, endless, not a trap, not a cage, the beginning of a life chosen, not taken.